ladies and gentlemen, let the chase begin. Race 1 of 10 in the chase for the Cup on NASCAR 07 to try to get Dave Blaney his first career NASCAR Nextel Cup Series Championship. And we come in as the #1 seed, so that means we are the points leader to begin the chase, but only 5 points ahead of second and as little as 45 points ahead of 10th. A lot of former champions and obviously champions of the sport that will yet to become further along their careers, obviously maybe on the early side of their careers in the game that is NASCAR 07. We are at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway today for the Sylvania 300 for our first race, 300 laps, 300 miles at this racetrack. We actually just ran this race in the regular season last week, dominated, led all but 4 laps in that race, 296 at 300 laps led. And we are starting mid-pack again, just like we did in that race. For some reason, I just cannot qualify well here, but I race well. Obviously, this is probably my best racetrack here in Richmond, the 2 best. Coming off the heels of Richmond for the regular season finale yesterday, we did end up actually simulating that because we had clinched the regular season title before the regular season finale. Clinched it 2 races early, so we simulated Fontana and Richmond. Dale Jarrett is the most recent winner, winning at Richmond. Jimmy Johnson won at Fontana. We did win the Bristol night race. 3 wins, though, in the last 11 races coming into this one, so we've definitely cooled off through the summer months. Had a couple of rough finishes in there. Watkins Glen 41st. Finished outside the top 10 at Daytona, finished 25th there, 17th at Chicagoland. So it's been really shaky over the last week and a half or so on the channel. Got to get off to a strong start for the chase, obviously, because when we get back to those intermediate tracks, we might have some struggling finishes again, like I just mentioned that we had. There are no road courses in the chase. We won Sonoma. We finished 41st at Watkins Glen, so it's really coin flip as to how good I'm going to be. So we don't have to worry about that. We do have 5.5-mile tracks in this 10-race chase, and we do have 1 super speedway. Although we did win at Talladega earlier this season, we finished 25th in both Daytona races. So again, that's kind of a coin flip race, I think. There's 2.5 miles we have not touched with this race car, so setup-wise, it's going to be interesting. Thanks for everybody tuning in here on this Sunday afternoon. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. Let's get into the race. I think we should dominate this one. Car feels a little on the snug side, but that's okay. We can adjust on it going forward if it is bad enough. Green flag is in the air. Greg Biffle on the pole. He's the 2 seed as we get things kicked off for chase race #1. 2 and 3 wide into the first turn at New Hampshire. We had 4 cautions in this. Well, not this very race, but the 4 cautions in the first New Hampshire race this season. We were able to survive the restarts, and again, we led all but 4 laps in that race. Got to be careful down on the apron with these Cup cars. Little loose there for Blaney. Going to lose a lot of ground off of turn 4. I get the left sides down there. I just can't get all 4 of them down there. Jackson Robinson, Wade, thanks for tuning in. You guys are the first 2 in the chat. Oh, trouble already. Kurt Busch. I think he got hit off the front bumper of the 14 of Sterling Marlin. Went up towards the wall, but we didn't get a caution for it. And we do stay green. Blaney getting a few positions back. I don't think I'm going to lead as many laps as I did earlier this season. It's taken me a little bit longer to try to get through this field. I don't know how I went from 20th to 1st in 4 laps here earlier in the season. Dive underneath Jimmy Johnson in the 48, 3 wide. Trying to make as clean of passes as we can. And our work way through the field. 29.242 that last lap. We'll be in the 28s, I'm sure, at some point. We just got a lot of traffic around us. 11 different drivers have won a race so far this season. As we come into the chase. Went to a hockey game this morning at 10 a.m. Well, that's a good start to your day. Hopefully it was a good game for those watching. See the Chandler Smith news? That he doesn't have a full-time ride? Unless something was announced more recently. But I know he's not running full-time, or at least it wasn't looking that way. The last report I had seen personally, which was like a week ago or so, 2 weeks ago. Oh, more contact behind us. Another car up against the wall in turns 3 and 4, but still no caution. Tired, and it was a good game. Well, get some rest. Well, your Lions are playing real soon. Don't they play the Bears early? 1 o'clock today? I know they play each other. I can't remember what time that game is, though. You see the smoke in 3 and 4 from the cars that make contact further back. Oh, speaking of contact, a little contact there with Matt Kenseth on the 17, 22 of Dave Blaney still going to get by. Biffle's led the first 6 laps of the race. Blaney's slowly working through the field here. Not trying to damage the car any. We know how quick we are. Inside of Mark Truex Jr., battling Ryan Newman as well for 4th. Harvick goes way wide on his entry into 3 and 4, and he's going to lose several positions here. He's going to lose one to the 12 and the 22. Newman up to 4th again, and Dave Blaney to a race-high 3rd place position, lap 8. In the teens, freezing outside. Yeah, I don't know what the temperature is here, but when I woke up, it was 11 degrees this morning. Pretty brisk. When I went out into the garage, into the refrigerator to get something for breakfast. Like, it's a little nippy out here. It's always tough when you can see your breath in a garage, an enclosed area. That's how you know it's cold outside. Doesn't look very windy, though, so I don't think it would be that bad for my taste. As long as there's no wind, I'll be all right. We had a little bit of snow overnight, not last night, but the night before. I woke up and ground was covered. I didn't even know it was supposed to snow. We had more smoke in turn 3 and 4. We've had 3 near incidences down there, but no caution to show for. Lap 9, Dave Blaney finally going to take his first lead of the race. So the first 8 laps were led by the pole sitter Greg Biffle, whose only win in the regular season came in our second Michigan date just a few days ago. Front row in the Cup Series? Or the Truck? Probably the Truck Series, I would imagine. Although Lane Riggs is probably in the, unless they have multiple trucks. You have to fill me in on that, because I really don't know. I did not see that info. Not NASCAR season. I have to, like, actively look at that stuff every day, because I don't get, like, notification stuff, because I'm not on social media a lot. Second Truck Series. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to say, I knew there wasn't any Cup slots available, unless he was going to do, like, part-time stuff. Blaney not pulling away, though. And knowing that it took me a little longer to get through the field, about twice as many laps, even though I still got through there in about 8 laps from the middle of the pack, but I don't think this 22 car's got as much speed as we usually see in it here at New Hampshire. So this is going to make for an interesting, maybe a slightly more competitive race than we're used to seeing. Feels like 9 here. Yeah, I don't know what the feel like temperature. I just remember seeing on my phone that it was 11. I think actually it was 11 and felt like 11. But that was also at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's probably warmed up at least a little bit now. I think the high is supposed to be in the 20s. We'll say temperature-wise, we did not have a fall where I live. I can remember there were some days in early November, it was 60, 70 degrees outside, and then all of a sudden it was like 30, 20, or below. Like that weekend of Thanksgiving, it was in the mid-20s, mid to low 20s as a high for like 2 or 3 days. And like 2 weeks before that, it was 70 degrees outside. We literally did not have a fall. Went from golf weather to winter in a matter of weeks. Or less than that. Michael Turner, thanks for tuning in. So we're pulling away, it looks like, from everybody but Greg Biffle. And as we know, lack of straightaway speed with this 22 car, but we are good on the shorter tracks. So we got 4 tracks of 1 mile and less in length in the chase. That would be New Hampshire, Dover, Martinsville, and Phoenix. Martinsville, the only traditional short track, but we do have 4 tracks that we have won at already this season. It's when we go to Kansas for the first time on Tuesday. Homestead for the first time at the end of the season. Texas, I finished 11, didn't lead a single lap there. Barely ran in the top 10. Got to try to find something to get just a little bit more speed out of it at that track. You know, Atlanta kind of stole a win late, in that one, but we only led 2 laps. That was the only 1.5 mile track. Actually, no, now that I think about it, I don't think I won that race. I'd have to look back at it. I think the only 1.5 mile we won was Vegas, but that's also the flattest 1.5 mile on the circuit. It is very hard for me to miss the bottom of the racetrack completely. I'm getting my cornering down pretty well. So it's going to be tough for us to get past, unless the tires really start to fall off of it later in the run. But yeah, I don't think we're quite as quick as we were. And honestly, the speed feels fine. I don't want to mess with it. Something about maybe not being able to use the apron as much as I was. Like, I could maybe get the left side just a smidge below that yellow line. But even in qualifying, I messed that first lap up a ton. I picked up like 15 positions, 16 positions on the second lap of qualifying. I was on the apron a little too long off turn 2, and it just did not hook up down there. We saw in that first lap I did the same thing. That initial start, we lost a couple spots. Why am I running the inside? In the corners or just in general? I am running far away from the wall. I'm just trying to minimize the gap time. I don't have a lot of straightaway speed in this car, so I'm not really having to go all the way up to the wall on the exit of the corner, and I can keep decent speed still down towards the bottom. So I'm just trying to shorten the track as much as I can. Definitely running the bottom in the corners. I mean, there's no question about that in general. Yeah, I'm running like halfway off the wall, basically, down the straightaways. It's what I do to make the fastest lap times I can on these short tracks in this game. Especially like here, Richmond. I mean, that's really why these are my 2 best tracks. I get into the more newer games, like with the Heat games, I was having to diamond the corner off. I can remember NASCAR 21, same thing. I was really having to diamond cut the corner off at New Hampshire to get decent speed out of it, but I'm really just trying to wrap the bottom all the way around here with these EA games. Finally starting to break away from Greg Biffle a bit. Knowing we had near incidences in those opening laps and we had 4 cautions at New Hampshire earlier this season, I would imagine we'll probably see some yellows today. Although we did go about half the race earlier this year before we saw our first caution. We went to lap 149 before the first yellow, but we did end up having 4 of them. They're all AI related. We weren't caught up in any. And we haven't had many cautions lately. You look at, obviously we simulated the last 2 races technically, but the last races that we ran, Bristol, 1 caution. Sharpie 500 yesterday. 2 days ago, Michigan, 1 caution. Both in the first half of the race. And then the entire second half and then some went caution free. Our only yellow yesterday at Bristol, lap 75 of 500. Michigan, it was around that same time period. What was it, like 69 or something like that? 63, 65, somewhere around there. We had a caution, and that was the only one in the race. Watkins Glen, we had 8 of them, and then the race before that at Indianapolis went caution-free. So it's kind of been the trend lately. No, we're going to have the car to beat here today. Again, got to take advantage of it. One at Dover, led the most laps in that race, too. Biffle getting 5 bonus points is big. If he ends up finishing second and he was only 5 points behind us, that's really going to put a lot of pressure on us to have to be very, very good on these mile-and-a-half tracks that he could potentially go out, lead more laps, maybe win. Excited for Bowman Gray Stadium. I mean, it's great to see in the sense that it's been a long time, you know, obviously since NASCAR's raced there. So kind of grassroots racing, going back to the roots. I'm all for that. I don't think the product of racing we're going to see is going to be any good at all, though. That track is so narrow, and these Cup cars just do not race well on short tracks. And the combination between the two of those things, it's, I'm definitely cautiously optimistic. I'm optimistic in the sense that, you know, the look and the appearance of the spectacle that is an exhibition race on a track like that with NASCAR, like today's NASCAR, that is awesome. Don't get me wrong. But, yeah, that racetrack, it's just tough with short tracks in general, with this car in particular. It's hard to get super, super ecstatic about it. I try to block that out as much as I possibly can. But then when you actually see the race going on and it's just so bad, it's like, oh man, this isn't the short track racing I grew up with. What is this? Dad was 7 last time he was at Bowman Gray. Yeah, the huge thing with that was so far ago or so long ago in the sport, they probably never even had a televised race there. I think what's awesome for Bowman Gray is the TV money they're going to be getting from Fox from this. And I wonder what kind of renovations they could do as a local short track that does put on races every week. You know, how much that will help. Maybe they could use that for more seating. Whatever it may be, it's going to be a huge win for the track, Bowman Gray in general, to have that kind of TV time. They're going to be getting a lot of money, and all the locals around the Bowman Gray Stadium racetrack area, you know, that go there every single week, you know, that's cool for them. They'll have some other stuff to maybe look forward to, renovations-wise, years to come. Flow Racing does weekly. Well, that's not exactly what I was... Well, that's subscription-based, though, for one, so it's not like it's network television. But I'm talking, like, network TV. Trust me, I've seen some stuff in Bowman Gray. And the stuff you see there on a typical Saturday night, you're also not going to be seeing with the Cup Series. Any of the tomfoolery of seeing guys demo derbying it in the infield grass because they're upset with each other. "30 minutes from your house. Cool. You going?" Going to be electric. It definitely will be. It's probably electric any Saturday night. So they only kept the right side tires down on that yellow line that time all the way through the corner. Catching up to another lap car here. David Stremme well behind. Towards the tail end of the field. Xfinity Saturday night at Nashville. Yeah, they having that race right in the middle of the summer. Definitely got to make it a night race. It is hot. I remember going there for the Cup race in 2021. That was one of the hotter races I had ever been to. It was in the low 90s. Just cooking in the sun. The way the grandstands are, too, there aren't many in the grand scheme of things there. And there's not as much like press box area, suites area at the top. So when the sun's setting, it takes a while for the sun to actually get behind the grandstands there. Like, it really didn't. I wasn't in the shade until probably the back 20-25% of the race. Like, the first 75-80% of the race, I mean, you're in the sun. And obviously, anybody that's ever been to a race or sporting event that has bleachers and you're just out in the middle of the sun on a 90-degree day, I'm glad there was a race going on. It took my took it off the mental state of things. But yeah, there were some sweaty people. Not to mention, with it being sold out, I think probably kept the heat in too. You're just on top of one another in the grandstands. You got 40,000 people just sardined in that place. Yeah. Hottest race I've ever been to, the Chicagoland race in 2019 before it rained. It was 101 degrees that day. I can remember that vividly. Like, it was 101 temperature. It was scorching. I think by the time the race started, it cooled off quite a bit because the storm came in pretty quickly. But like pre-race, walking around on the concourse, I sweated through my shirt. And I don't sweat much. I don't sweat very often. So for me to just like sweat through my shirt walking around, like, that is not normal for me. It was hot that day. And granted, I was on asphalt too, so that only made things worse. But yeah, it was bad. It was hot. Yeah, it was 101. And then after the storm came through, it never got to 70 degrees again. And I was wet because it was raining sideways. Obviously, we went under the bleachers to kind of take cover, but everybody that was under there still got wet. There wasn't a way out of the rain. They don't call it the Windy City for nothing. Wind was whipping the rain in sideways. Yeah, we were all in the line of flight of the rain. But yeah, I was soaked, and then it never got above 70 degrees. And got me cold. Went from ridiculously hot to ridiculously cold in a matter of hours. I didn't really get cold right away, but once I got back, like, the race was about to get going, and the temperature dropped so much, and they ended up racing like into the nighttime too, so the temperature itself was going to naturally drop anyway. Part of the reason why it probably never got back above 70. But yeah, in July too. And I didn't have any spare clothes either, you know, I just had what I was wearing. I was so tempted to go up there and buy a sweatshirt somewhere mid-race. I ended up kind of getting used to it after a while. Pretty much like by the time I dried off, I wasn't cold anymore. I was comfortable, but the first probably 45 minutes to an hour that the race was going back on after the rain delay, I was actually cold. It was tough. It was a tough sit. Just ran our fastest lap of the race, 29.063 that last lap. Kansas was the hottest race for you, 93. Almost died. A little bit, maybe a little bit of an exaggeration. Hopefully you didn't almost die. You gotta stay hydrated. Plenty of water. Yeah, there's always the one person that you always see getting like wheeled out of there because they drink nothing but alcohol all day on like a hot race. Because I've been to several hot races. I mean, obviously in the summertime it's pretty much hot anywhere in the U.S., but yeah, they're out in the sun all day. They're drinking nothing but alcohol, so they're not really staying hydrated, and then they just pass out. I mean, you see that all the time. Or at least I do. I always see at least one person on a gurney. They're responsive, by the way. They're not dead, but they're definitely having a heat stroke. The sun is the real deal. Only been to one NASCAR race, General Darlington 23 with the kids. Yeah, it's a good track to go to. I need to get back to Darlington again. That's definitely one of the tracks I've only been to once that I would love to go back. I need to get back to at some point. Martinsville's kind of another one of those too. Move down to Charlotte next year. Maybe I could get to one of them. Depending on the time of the year I get there. Martinsville Fall Race is going to be very doable for me. Before the season starts, I am going to have the schedule of races I'm going to and stick to that. And then the races I will be doing live commentary for, so you can always look back in the community tab. We'll have it pinned. I think there's a way to pin it. I'll have to figure it out, but try to keep it so it's towards the top of the community tab all season. Trail of Smoke now in turns 1 and 2. We've seen it in 3 and 4 a couple times, but turns 1 and 2 there. We still haven't had a caution through the first 50 laps, but we've seen 4 instances where somebody's gotten into the wall. I would imagine it wasn't soft. Angle of impact has looked tough. Based off the skid marks. Where do I live? I live in Ohio right now. My whole life, actually, I've lived in Ohio. Around Toledo. Haven't hit halfway out of gas yet. We're currently at lap 52, but again, we can make this race on 2 stops. We ended up having to pit more times earlier this season, but that's because we ended up having several cautions. That could be the case here today as well. But I think the plan, regardless, is to just pit around every 100 laps. If we get a caution close to lap 100 or lap 200, we'll pit. Just because we don't want to pit just like 20 laps into a run or something like that. But caution were to come out like right now, for instance, I'd be staying out of the pits. We'd probably see a lot of drivers come in, but give me that track position. We'll do the same thing that we basically did at Bristol. It's going to sacrifice more laps led, but we still, with the speed we have, should be able to lead the most. Not to mention, this is a bigger track than Bristol, so it would probably work better here than it did there. 29.061, fastest lap of the race again. Just hit halfway out of gas right before getting to the start-finish line for lap 54. So we could go somewhere between 104 to 106 laps on a full tank of gas. Most excited about 2025 NASCAR Cup Series season. Oh, man. Trying to think of races I'd be going to. I'm intrigued to see the turnout of the Mexico City race. That's going to sell out. I like to think that that's going to sell out that weekend. And Daniel Suarez is going to be like Dale Earnhardt Jr. for a weekend. It's going to be like 2000 Dale Jr. 2000s, specifically Dale Jr. by way of fan popularity. And if he wins, if there was a roof on that place, it'd blow it off. I mean, it would be cool to see, honestly. I'm probably secretly pulling for Daniel Suarez that weekend. For that alone. Unless he's battling Blaney for the win late or something, but that would be just a spectacle. Blocked by the 171 car. Most excited for the Xfinity. Oh, you're asking like for each series specifically. For the trucks in the Xfinity, it's definitely to go back to Rockingham. That's the only weekend that the Cup Series is off too, so there will legitimately be racing for 38 straight. Well, technically the week off, 39 straight weeks in NASCAR. Well, I guess they technically have a week off between the Clash and the Daytona 500, so 38 straight weeks. There's going to be some sort of NASCAR going on. And I'm all here for it. We will be doing live streaming, live commentary literally every weekend from the week of the Daytona 500 through the end of the season. There's going to be something live commentary streaming going on. Unless I end up going to a full weekend of racing, which is very likely that I'll have at least 1 or 2 races this year where I will be at like every Truck Xfinity Cup race, whatever. So those will technically be my off weeks, but I'll still be doing content at the track. Yeah, Lime Rock will be interesting. I don't even really know the full layout of that track, to be completely honest. I've seen some videos on YouTube in the past, but I haven't seen enough of it to memorize it. They'll probably put on a good show. I mean, Trucks had some great races at Mid-Ohio the couple years they went there. Live coverage for the Clash. I think it's the weekend of the Royal Rumble. I'll have to look back at the calendar because I'm going to Indy for the Royal Rumble. And that's on a Saturday night. But I know the Clash is on a Sunday. So I'll definitely be doing live commentary for the Clash, but I might not be able to do live commentary for practice and qualifying for that weekend specifically. Unless I can do it from my hotel, but it's going to depend on what time they do that. I know with the Clash, they like to do it prime time with practice and qualifying. But if it's during the day, I can definitely do it at the hotel, but I'll just try to check in as early as I can. But I would imagine it's going to be at night. It's not going to be during the daytime, so I'm probably going to have to miss that. Which is probably the same for any heat races. Well, they might have the heat races the day of the actual Clash. Sunday. Yeah, I know the Clash is Sunday. But any practice or qualifying that they have for it is probably going to be the day before. And I will be doing practice and qualifying streams for the Cup Series like I did all last year as well. So that might be the only one I'm going to miss. Want to go back to Talladega? Yeah, there's a very high probability I'm going to the Dega Spring Race this year. I missed last year. That was the first time I went 4 consecutive years prior to that. Same for Bristol. The 2 guaranteed races, well, I should say 3. There's 3 guaranteed races I'm going to next year, and that would be Talladega Spring, Bristol Night, and Michigan in June. Those 3, I can tell you right now, I'm definitely going. The Brickyard 400 at Indy is just going to depend on when I'm moving. Because I don't have an exact time frame on that yet. I just know it's going to be sometime from like May onward through the summer. Whenever I end up like finding some place to get an exact move-in date a couple months in advance, I'll know for sure. But if I'm still living here, I do plan on going to the Brickyard 400. That same next year as well. Atlanta Spring. Atlanta would be cool. The only problem is it's around Michigan. And the spring race, it's very high probability I'm going to Coda too. I'm like 80% certain on that. And that's because I know some other people that are going to that race as well. So I think I'm going to meet them down there. I haven't been to Coda yet, so I definitely want to get there when I can. Yeah, there's several races I'm eyeing right now. I'm probably looking at like 6 or 7 races I'd go to next year. It's kind of the ballpark of where I want to get to. But I know 3 of them that are guaranteed. And they're all pretty evenly spread out. It'll pretty much be about 1 race a month I'll try to attend throughout the NASCAR season. First Daytona 500 practice, Wednesday morning. I will be doing it for everything. I get my vacation time, and I'm literally going to try to use my vacation time around those days that I need it for. I got 2 weeks. One of those weeks is going to be the week I move, so I'm not going to blow them all. But yeah, any day that I need like a Thursday practice session or something like that. Well, I mean, granted, I'm not going to be doing truck and Xfinity practice and qualifying stuff. If I did that on top of the Cup Series practice and qualifying, I'd literally be streaming all day Friday and all day Saturday. Like, it'd be an all day Friday, all day Saturday, like every weekend I'd be streaming. That's a little too much. I mean, there's a reason that when NASCAR is doing, you know, broadcasts on air, they don't have the same guys in the booth for all 3 series for everything that's going on. Even when Rick Allen was doing play-by-play for Xfinity and Cup, he wasn't necessarily always doing the play-by-play every weekend for Xfinity. Like, sometimes it'd be Marty Snyder doing the play-by-play or Dave Burns. Same for, like, practice and qualifying. Like, they'd have Marty Snyder in the booth for practice and qualifying with Dale Jarrett and Kyle Petty or something, while the usual guys that would be in the booth were waiting for the Cup Series to start. They would split it up so they're not working them to death while they're at the track all weekend. When do I work? I work Tuesday through Thursday right now. Oh, where do I work? I work at a Home Depot warehouse. Get about a 10-second lead for Dave Blaney. Denny Hamlin's got quite a bit of damage on his race car, and I almost wonder if he's going to shed some debris at some point. I mean, his hood looks crunched. The whole front of that car. Might have been one of the several that have gone up into the wall at some point in time in this race. So a third of a track lead right now for Dave Blaney. He's led all but the first 8 laps of the race. Lap 9 to lap 74 he has led. Biffle led the first 8 from the pole. Not sure if Biffle's still in second place or not, since we have pulled away from him. I don't think Rick Allen's working for Fox, so that's not going to happen. I know Adam Alexander is supposed to be doing the IndyCar broadcast, isn't he? Adam Alexander will do Prime TNT races. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, never mind. I was thinking Rick Allen went there. Actually, Rick Allen might end up doing the CW Xfinity series. Has it been announced where Rick Allen's going yet? If not, that's probably where I would lean to. But yeah, I don't think Fox picked him up. I'd imagine... I was thinking that Adam was doing IndyCar on Fox. That's not the case, though, if he's going to Turner. I wonder who's going to be taking over for Mike Joy then. They're going to need somebody to do play-by-play when Mike Joy decides to retire, because that time's probably coming sooner rather than later. I mean, you would think it's got to be within the next few years. And they don't have, I mean, they have Jamie Little, and I don't think Jamie Little's going to be doing that. I don't want her to. Chris Myers is doing pre-race for IndyCar. Yeah, well, he does that for Fox, too. You can do it. Hey, man, I mean, that would be cool, but I don't think they would hire me for that. If Fox is sending out applications for doing live play-by-play, I'm all here for it. I will do that in a heartbeat. I'm already going to be moving down to the Charlotte area anyway. The front tires in the yellow on the tire wear indicator. Burning them up. Truck Series play-by-play's been suffering ever since Steve Burns ended up leaving. Before he unfortunately passed away. He was a good successor for Rick Allen. When they ended up moving the truck races to FS1 from Speed Channel. Those truck races when it was Rick Allen and Phil Parsons in the booth, man, those hit different. Those are some cool broadcasts. Ryan Preece for the Clash. That's a bold prediction. With the new ride. You know, I almost wonder if they were going to have Steve Burns kind of eventually lead up to be the successor for Mike Joy, and they were going to hang on to him for all these years. And then when, you know, that unfortunately had happened, I wonder if they just had to pivot, and that's when Vince Welch ended up basically kind of getting thrown into the wolves there. I mean, that track would definitely fit for him. I mean, it's not a bad pick. It's only bold because he hasn't had any success in the Cup Series. You know, I'm interested to see what he does. Ryan Preece has a lot of hype, I feel like, within the sport of NASCAR. But from the outside looking in, I personally haven't seen anything in the Cup Series level that dictates that, you know, he should probably be there full time, to be completely honest. I hate to be the one to say that, but so I'm all for these grassroots short track racers to make their way, you know, into the top levels of NASCAR because we don't have enough of them. And I think that's why he does get a lot of the fans that he does, but I personally haven't seen, you know, that kind of level of success or anywhere near it. I don't think he's getting the most out of his equipment, even when he's been in the, you know, not as good equipment side of things with SHR. He was always getting outran by Chris Buescher at JTG and then Stenhouse. Got the Robert Yates Racing Ford, Zavelli Sadler, Dale Jarrett just going a lap down to our outside there. Haven't seen anybody pit yet, but I would imagine we'll be seeing pit stops very soon. Lap 88 at the line. Still caution-free so far today. He will have a team that'll believe in him. And it is a good move for him, obviously, to get that ride. But, I mean, if he doesn't shine, where does he go from here, you know? Honestly, I think he would be a driver that would easily compete for, like, a truck title. It seems like whenever he's in a truck, he wins. He's had some good Xfinity races part-time, too. Even when he was with JGR, he did pretty well. He's a fringe title contender on the Xfinity level, but... yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm in agreement with you, though, Easy Network. Brad retires in 2026. I don't think he's that old. Is Brad even 40 years old yet? I mean, he's got to be around there, but... I mean, Busch is what, 40? 41? I think he's a couple years younger than Kyle Busch. He just got in the Cup Series a little later. We do have heavy traffic around us. Be careful, though. I had slight contact on, like, the second lap of the race with Kenseth, actually. Here he is. Ran us a little tightly down on the bottom of the track. We tried to pass him the first time. Making our way around the apron a little bit better as the race goes on. I just can't put the pedal to the metal as quickly down there. I have to ease into the throttle. Be 41 when the season starts. O's. Little contact there with Brian Vickers. He was trying to pit as I was trying to make a pass on him. It looked like he did get down to pit road. It's hard of contact with anything we've had today. Busch is 39. He'll be 40 next year. Okay, so Busch is a little younger than I thought then. 40 for Brad, 41 in February. So 2026, you'll think he'll retire at the end of 2026 is what you're saying? Stenhouse approved equipment is winnable super speedway tracks. You're talking about Roush? Or are you talking JTG? With the Stenhouse comment. JTG. Yeah. At Stenhouse, especially in 2022, after he won the Daytona 500, he was like top 15 in points almost all season. And he would string along some top 10s here and there. Like, he had a second at Dover behind Chase Elliott in 2022. And he had a couple of other, like, really good runs along the way. Like, even if he had not won the 500, he would have made the playoffs on points in 2022. Well, probably not, because we had so many different winners. Because Truex ended up missing it. But if we had not had as many different winners as we did, he was about top 16 in points all season. Stenhouse had a great 2022. Probably the best season of his career, honestly. Highlighted, of course, with the 500 win, but that was his most consistent season, and he was doing it with that equipment, too. What Truck Series driver? Matt Crafton. Crafton is, I mean, I'd be shocked if he ever wins again at this rate. He had a couple of good runs at Bristol this last season. That was about as close as he has come to winning a race in years. He's trying to get out of the way. The 171, he was trying to pit. He's getting pinched behind cars. A little contact with several of them. Go a few more laps until we make our stop. And it will be a 4-tire stop. Top off on fuel. $23. Sorry, I had my years mixed up. I meant 23. He was top 16 in points the whole year. Yeah, so, I mean, he would have made the chase without a win then. I was thinking, I said 2022, so then I was thinking of the 2022 season when Truex missed the playoffs. But yeah, 2023, when Stenhouse won the 500, he still had a really good season throughout the course of that year. It was 22 that he finished second at Dover to Chase Elliott, but I mixed my years up as far as his consistency and points went. And I honestly think him winning the Daytona 500 really kind of kick-started that, because we kind of saw the same thing out of Michael McDowell in 2021. And even Austin Cindric to a certain extent. I thought he was probably better in his rookie season than he was in the sophomore year. In 23, way better. And then he kind of got back to where he was his rookie season this last year in 2024. But there's a lot of funding that could go for winning the 500. I mean, it's the biggest winner's purse of the season. And it just seems like we see, you know, if we see some underdog driver or underdog team win that specific race, they have great runs throughout the rest of the season and really exceed expectations from what they had going into the year. And I think, again, that funding from winning that race specifically goes right back into the team. All right, we're going to be pitting next lap, 103. Go a few laps past lap 100 here. And we just ran our fastest lap, 28.894. So a 28.8 on our last lap before pitting. But it will be a 4-tire stop, and again, full tank of gas. We should cycle out with the lead pretty easily, even if there is a mistake. In the pits, our first of 2 stops of the day for Dave Blaney, as we're still caution-free at New Hampshire. Solid pit road entry, no adjustments here. We got our preset setting right where it needs to be today. For the 4 tires on a full tank of gas every time we come down. Week 16 of the NFL already? Yeah, NFL season's definitely flown by. I think because of how good my fantasy teams are doing this year, it's making it fly by. I'll be starting up here in a couple minutes. Usually, when I do these noon streams, I kind of score check during... Oh, jeez. Down in the grass. Hey! We're good. Trying to stay on the bottom and stay out of the way of oncoming traffic. I almost wiped out. I was going to say, usually score check when we do these early afternoon streams on the weekends, but games aren't on yet, and I'm only going to have one more pit stop to do it later in the day. Big week, semifinals of the playoffs on my my ESPN league, and game out of third. Top 4 gets a first round bye for my playoff reseeding drafts on my big money leagues, so I'm fighting for that as well. I'm obviously not going to win the regular season title. I think I'm mathematically out of it now. I believe I'm 4 games back with 3 to go. Even if I'm only 3 back, which I could be. I don't know if that guy won last week. I didn't really look at the standings through this week, but I'm just kind of keeping an eye on the teams I'm around in points, see if I can jump them. But even if I'm tied, I would have to win out. They would have to lose the last 3 games. And I would have to outscore them by like over 100 points combined over the next few weeks, too. Bet I wasn't happy the Buckeyes won last night. Hey, so I don't know the prize of... So ESPN's got like a college football playoff like bracket game going on. You know, I filled my bracket out. I'm a football guru. NASCAR first, but I'd say probably football knowledge second. Do my research, whatever that I needed going into putting that bracket together. I'm 4 for 4. All right. I think a lot of people probably had all the home teams winning yesterday, so I doubt I'm the only one that's predicted all 4 games right so far, but I'm 4 for 4. And you can fill up the 2 brackets. So I'm guaranteed to win the Ohio State-Oregon game because one of them I have Ohio State going all the way and the other one I got Oregon going all the way. So I just got to get the other 6 games correct. I don't know what the grand prize is on that, though. Carson Beck not playing for Georgia, potentially next week against Notre Dame, too. If I had a chance to go back and edit, I'd maybe edit Notre Dame winning that game. It's going to be close. I mean, that's probably going to be the game of the week next week. If Beck doesn't play, it's going to be a low-scoring, tight game. And it's probably going to be the first one to 20 wins. Grand prize is a hug from me. They going to fly you out to whoever ends up winning the bracket? Take a vacation somewhere? The idea of you hugging some stranger is hilarious. Be like, who are you? And what is this about? You won the bracket challenge. It's probably like $10,000 or something. It usually is something like that. I know for March Madness, it's like $1 million or something like that if you fill out a perfect bracket. I doubt it's that way for college football because there's only 11 games. I feel like the likelihood is somebody is probably going to get a perfect bracket. So I doubt they're giving away that much money. Loose moment there coming out of turn 3, trying to dive underneath Harvick and Stewart at the same time. Oof. Oh, wow. 4 wide there for a brief moment. Harvick got tight getting into turn 3. Blaney having a hard time trying to get by the 20 and the 29. Should have Harvick clear, and we're going to have Stewart cleared off turn 2 as well. Lap 113, so a couple of faster cars and chase drivers nonetheless are lapped down. We're racing 9 guys for the championship right now. I mean, any one of these 9 could win it, so. Especially with how tight the points are. Through Dega, I think we're going to have a good idea of who's going to be competing for the championship. Because that's definitely going to be the wild card race of this whole thing. Didn't have to, just hugged a random person. Good thing they didn't go into like self-defense mode or something. Don't do it from behind either. You might actually get hit if you did that. Yeah, they're doing that, and then they have a college football like confidence pick thing through the bowl games. I always play that every year. There was one year I went into like the New Year's Day games, and I was towards the top of the list. Like I was like top 5, and there was like 6 or 7 games left. I'm like, if I actually get these 6 or 7 games, I might win this damn thing. So I still had a lot of my points left. So I was kind of going in descending order. And of like the however many there was, I think there was like 41 or 42 at the time. There's more now because of the playoff games, but yeah, it was wild. Like I couldn't wait to get home from work that day and watch football because I was like, man, I need these to go my way. Give me the $10,000. It didn't happen. Did not go my way. I think I lost like 5 of the last 7 games or something like that. Like reality hit me square in the face real quickly. This year, I've only lost 3 games so far. I'm trying to think, there were 4 more playoff games. I can't remember how many games we've had so far, but I've only lost 3, and the 3 I've lost were a 6, 7, and 8 point, or no, 5, 6, and 7 point games. And I went big instead of, I was basically going in order, 1 through whatever so far. But then when the playoff games came up, I felt really confident about the 4 playoff games that the home teams are going to win. So I put them as like the 47, 46, 45, and 44. So I hit all those. So I'm off to a good start. Dan Campbell's my dad. I'm not tough enough to be in the Campbell family. I don't have that kind of, bite the kneecaps off of somebody's energy. I don't have that kind of bone in my body. I think that's why I wasn't great at football growing up, honestly. I'm just too nice. I didn't help that they put my scrawny ass on the offensive line either. I could see that if maybe I weighed... granted, I did not play in high school, so I doubt I would have been offensive line in high school if I had gotten there. There's no chance in hell. But, I mean, we'd go up against some schools that actually had, like, good football programs, like, through the high school ranks. So in junior high, you could kind of tell that, like, those kids were going to be really good on their varsity team someday. And I'd be on the offensive line. I wasn't as scrawny as I was in high school and junior high, but I was getting there. The only way I could hold my own is if we played some teams that were just really bad at sports. Like, there was a select few in our conference that were just bad across the board. It seemed like they didn't have an athletic bone on the entire athletic anywhere. It doesn't matter what team it was. Baseball, basketball, whatever. They just, they stunk. They stunk at sports. We'd play those schools, I'd be fine on the offensive line. But, yeah, I mean, I was terrible. I don't know whose decision it was to put me there. I kind of wanted to be a tight end, like, I could pass block, but I'm tall. So I can go out there, receive. I got good hands. Yeah, I'm not fast enough. I wasn't fast enough to be a receiver, because, like, back at that time, like, oh, I want to be a receiver. But looking back, I was not fast enough to do that. But I definitely could have been a tight end offensively. And I can remember playing linebacker in practice for like a week because somebody was sick. So they were basically planning on me to be the linebacker for that game, that weekend. And I was like, okay, it was probably my best week of practice. And I'd never played that position before because I was always stuck, again, on the line. So I was on the D line. I was just getting pushed around by guys that were just so much bigger than me. I wasn't big enough to play there. It's like playing basketball, too. I was always stuck at the center position. Probably the best or second best shooter on the team, like all the way through my upbringing. My coach didn't want me shooting. He was very like old school in the sense that like the center's down in the post 100% of the time. It didn't matter. I mean, he had to have seen me shooting, like, in warm-ups and stuff. I was like, oh, he's making, like, almost every shot. Nope, it doesn't matter. I got yelled at for shooting a jumper in the middle of the game that I made. He's like, don't do that again. And I knew going into my junior year, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I want to play this anymore. Tired of just getting bodied around by people that are bigger than me, especially like with basketball. They put you down. There's a lot of like crossover between football athletes and basketball athletes, especially in high school. So you get like, it would kind of be the same thing. I'd be down in the center position because I'm 6'4" and I'm like the tallest kid on the team. So I'm down in the center position for that reason only. I went to a smaller school too, so that, if I went to a bigger school, there was probably going to be someone bigger than me that probably could have played center, but school I was at, it was small, so I was going to play center. I was basically stuck down there. It didn't matter what kind of speed I was. And I was kind of like middle of the road. Like when we do sprints, I wasn't the slowest kid by any means. I was kind of like right in the middle, so I definitely would have been able to play like a stretch four position. But yeah, that wasn't a thing. But yeah, I mean, you just get bodied like every game because you're playing up against somebody that plays probably on the line or something, or some physical position off the football team, and they'd be down with me in the post, and they were probably down in the post because they weren't a basketball player, so they probably didn't trust them handling the ball much. They were in there for defense only. Yeah, it was stupid. It was so stupid. I worked so much on my shot from like 8th grade because I was naturally good at it. I didn't play basketball through middle school, but I picked it back up again. I played like in the youth years, I think 5th, 6th grade, but then after that, I didn't play 7th or 8th. Kind of went away from it, and then I was kind of getting back into it. I'd always just kind of shot around like at the park and played pickup games and stuff through all that, so the knowledge was all still there. I just wasn't playing on a team. Yeah, I got into high school and freshman year. I was kind of new kid on the block again. Like the coaches in high school didn't really know who I was. I was always a quiet kid anyway, but yeah, they didn't know who I was. Because the freshmen and the JV coach, they didn't even go to the school. Like, they weren't teachers or anything at the school I was at, so they really didn't know who I was if I didn't play the last couple of years. So that probably didn't help either. In the sense of maybe putting me in the right position. Yeah, I was just tired of getting chewed out for basically not playing well enough, like, defensively against somebody that was just twice my size. Not twice my size height. Like, it'd be somebody that was somewhat even to me in height, but they would outweigh me by like 30, 40 pounds, and I couldn't guard them. The weird thing is, actually, when I would play defense in the post against somebody that was taller than me, I always seemed to do better against them because I was quicker. So I'd always be better then, but if I was playing somebody that was like my height or shorter, but they were stockier, I couldn't move them. I just couldn't do it. I didn't get into like working out until after high school, so I was just, 150, 160 pounds, 6'4" from the age of 15, like all the way through high school. I was super scrawny. Hard to make shots as a center against taller guys. Yeah, I'd be pretty much down there. Yeah, it was really starting to get to me too, because I broke my ankle my sophomore year, and it was actually in like it was a practice. I think it was like only the second practice of the year or something. Like, it was really early in the season. We didn't even have our first game yet. I think we had a couple scrimmages, but we didn't have like our first actual game of the season yet. And I broke my ankle, and I ended up actually partially tearing a couple ligaments around the bone in my ankle that I broke. I was pretty much out the rest of the season. And it was like the second practice. But anyway, it happened. I was just jumping up for a rebound, and I came down, and I was on the ground. I was like trying to get up for what felt like an eternity. In actuality, it was probably like 20 to 30 seconds that was sitting there. But I was actually trying to like push up off the ground, and all the strength basically in my leg was just non-existent in the right leg. And I had always had like weaker ankles growing up when I was real young. I used to roll my ankle a lot. Flat feet stuff. But I knew something was different there, because one, I heard a crunch. So there was that. Like, I could hear it as I was like mid-fall or whatever. And then two, yeah, I was sitting there. I was trying to get up, and they kept playing on the other end of the court defensively. I had to crawl onto my knees and get up, and I actually walked back to the sideline. I was basically just calling for a sub at that point. And nobody helped me up, whatever. Coach asked me if I was all right to get back in like a couple series later or whatever, and I told him no, because I was trying to walk it off, and I couldn't do it. And then I ended up coming home, and then took my shoe off and saw the swelling, and I'm like, yeah, that looks like You could just tell it's like a miniature bowling ball. I'm like, yeah, probably need to go check this out. So I told my dad. My dad drove me up to the hospital that night and got the X-rays. Ended up getting an MRI like the next day, or whatever. Saw the partially torn ligaments in it the next day. My doctor was even like befuddled at the fact that I was able to walk on it like I was. As soon as they found out it was broken, they gave me crutches and stuff. But like even going in there, I was just kind of limping my way up the like 3 steps or whatever. Get checked into the hospital, and it took care of me from then on. But yeah, I was actually walking on it. I have a really high pain tolerance, like, so I was able to walk on it. I had actually broken my ankle one time before that, also in basketball my freshman year. And it was the same thing. I was coming down for a rebound. I can't remember if I heard a crunch or not that time. It was like this basketball camp that we always did every June. So as a freshman, that was like my first instance of basically playing high school basketball, was that tournament. It was in Ohio. It was called Eastern Ohio. It was over by like the Youngstown area. Massive tournament. You'd have like 60, 70 schools that were all there. It'd be like this 3 to 4 day long thing, depending on like how many games you won. It was all like round robin wise. You'd play like 7, 8 games a day. Each game was 15 minutes. Actually, it's probably more than that. I think the first day was 7, 8, and then it was more like 12 games the next day. It'd be like 15 minutes. You'd have a block of 2 hours, or it'd be 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off. And then you'd have like an hour or 2 break. You'd go back up to the cabin, and then you'd have to meet at a different court or whatever, because there was like 16 courts in that general area. They gave you time to basically get something to eat, get some fluids, and then you were back out there 15 on, 15 off for another 2 to 3 hours. And the very first game, I rolled my ankle. And I come to find out when I actually got the X-ray at the hospital when I went in the next year that I ended up breaking my ankle. He asked me if I had broken my ankle before, and I told him, no, I haven't. But I told him about that instance where I might have, because there was a lot of swelling that weekend too. And my coach was like, oh, you probably just sprained it. I didn't get it checked out by like the medical team or whatever that was working that Eastern Ohio basketball camp. Never went down there. He was like, just go up to the cabin during our next break, ice it. And yeah, I ended up playing. I sat out the rest of that block, that 2-hour block. I went up, I iced it. I came down. I didn't want to go back in because I knew I was basically like going to be limping up and down the court. And he was like, well, I got put in. And I played the rest of the weekend. That happened on a Thursday. I played the rest of the Friday, that Saturday. And then we got eliminated real early on Saturday, so we took the bus ride back home. And I wasn't racing for points at that point in time. When I was racing, I don't think I was in quarter midgets at that time. I think I was in go-karts, because, yeah, I was 15. So I was racing go-karts at that time still, dirt racing. And I was like, oh, there's a race here that weekend. So I met my, my grandpa and my dad, wherever. Ended up meeting them after the bus had dropped me off. Worked it out with the bus driver, like, hey, could you drop me off at like this like Napa or something? And they picked me up with the trailer. We went to Sandusky Speedway that night, and I raced like with a broken ankle. I never got it looked at. It was probably broken that time, but anyway, yeah, when I got it checked at the hospital the next day after I knew for sure I broke my ankle, they were like, oh yeah, you probably broke it. So I played like the rest of the weekend basketball wise on a broken ankle. I raced that following weekend and raced throughout the rest of the summer. That summer I was till it healed. It took a good like 3-4 weeks for the swelling to go down. Probably healed improperly. I still have like this, I don't know if it's like a callus or something, but it's on my ankle, and you can basically feel where it healed improperly, I guess. I don't know if it was from that specifically, or if it was from when I had got medically diagnosed that I had broken it the next year, but one of the two. That was probably the first one. It just didn't heal properly. And there's like a bone that's like sticking out on my foot. It's kind of gnarly looking. You don't notice unless I take like my other sock off on the other foot, and then you can clearly see that there's a bone that's basically like calloused or a bump on the top of my foot that's probably not supposed to be there. Did it affect my racing? I'm sure it did. I still like if I go to do ankle circles, it'll crack all the time, and that's probably normal with like arthritis for anybody else that's had a severe ankle injury. But if I'm flexing it from top to bottom, I'll give the hand gesture here in a moment. If I'm flexing it from like top to bottom like this, it just doesn't go down as far as my other foot. I don't have the flexibility in it. When I'm doing calf raises when I work out, it's kind of tough because I can't go up as high with my right leg as my left leg, so I have to do them separately, one leg at a time. Because otherwise, I'm just not getting the full stretch out of the left leg. My left calf is bigger than my right for that reason. Like, it's messed up my whole right leg. I don't have the strength in my right leg I do. I think that's honestly why I have some knee problems in my left knee, because I favor my left leg more than my right, because my right leg's just weaker. I just don't have as much strength. I haven't been back to a podiatrist in a few years. Honestly, ever since like high school, I haven't gone back and like said something about it. It doesn't cause me any pain. Like, I don't have pain, you know, waking up in the morning, walking around. Like, I don't have pain. Any sort of remote, like, you know, arthritis that there probably is. It cracks when I walk down the steps all the time, up and down the steps. It's always cracking. But there's no pain there. It just does it. Do circles for plantar fasciitis, tendonitis sometimes. Safety standards suck. Yeah, I mean, we had a medical team. The thing is, so our practices, we didn't usually have like the medical, I don't know. I mean, obviously they probably had like some sort of schooling, I would imagine, on our sports athletic team, but they were usually at the games. But in practices, I don't remember them hardly being there. The only practices I can remember them being there is if there was like a girls' basketball game like later that day, so we had an earlier practice. Sometimes they'd be in the building, but yeah, for the most part, there wasn't like an actual medical person on standby. And I don't know if it's like that still now, but that's the way it was when I was in high school. Honestly, my coach probably didn't think it was broken because he saw me walk off the court. He probably thought I just tweaked it a little bit. So that's probably why he was asking me if I was ready to get back in the game. On both occasions, I broke it 2 consecutive years, but the one year I never got it looked at. So it was probably bound to end up breaking again, like it did. But yeah, and then junior year, it went by, and it was kind of the same thing where I was, you know, getting bodied around down in the posts. I didn't have as much of a vertical leap after I broke my ankle. I can guarantee you that. Like, I still play pickup games here and there. Like last year, I got into it more, playing with some guys at work. And I still have like the raw natural ability, but yeah, I don't have anywhere near the leap that I once had. Like, I used to be able to get rim before I broke my ankle. Technically, the medical wise, like even after the first time I would have broken it, in that basketball camp, it didn't really affect me as much. But then the second time it did, yeah, I never was able to jump as high. I mean, it probably took a couple inches off my vertical leap. I went from being able to get rim to like barely being able to touch the bottom of the backboard that came out. It did slow me down too. I wasn't as fast. I was like middle of the road before that, and then after that, I would still beat like a couple of the slower kids, but there were some kids that I was faster than before that I wasn't as fast. Like, it really just destroyed whatever like ability I had before. Then at that point, because, you know, coaches probably see me not run as fast. Oh yeah, he's probably still gonna stay down in the post or whatever. All right, whatever. It is what it is. Basketball was never like my, if I was as passionate about basketball as I was with racing, I probably would have been more furious about the situation, but it wasn't. I'm sure it did affect my racing, though. Like, there was a time frame there. Those last couple of years I raced, I definitely wasn't as competitive for some reason. And I think some of it, honestly, was the equipment we were running. We probably beat our equipment into the ground and just didn't get it rehauled or upgraded as often as I needed to, especially from, like, the engine side of things. So that probably was a lot to do with me maybe not winning as much racing the last year or two I was there. I only won a couple races. You know, you go from winning championships at a younger level, and then you get to something that you were competitive in, and then the competitiveness just kind of stops. I've been in a couple accidents that were pretty bad that I mentioned on the channel before too with racing that, you know, I'm sure that that does something, even though psychologically, like, I still have the, I mean, look at Ryan Newman, for instance. There's probably something psychologically when you get, like, a vicious enough accident that it does probably scare you in the back of your mind. But at the forefront, it doesn't. Like, I don't think about it. But when I'm actually out there on the track and there's maybe a small opening to make a pass, I don't go for it because I know the risk of going for it might not end well for me. That's probably somewhere in the back of my head. And therefore, if I'm not going to make those, you know, moves anymore, I'm not going to make as many passes, it's going to affect my result. I'm sure that that happened, even though I would say it didn't. And I just had, you know, people around me that were nice enough to say that that wasn't the problem or something, or never brought that up. My dad did bring it up one time. And at the time, you know, it sucked hearing that because I was like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about because, you know, like, I don't think that way. But, you know, looking back on it psychologically, there probably was something there. I don't know for a fact that that was the case. Newman had kids, so that matters. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at his stats, though, when he came back from that injury that season with Roush, and then that next year, I mean, he only had a couple more top tens the rest of his career after that. And he was in the playoffs in 2019. Like, that crash happened in the 500 in 2020. And he was in the playoffs the season before that on consistency. And then after that crash, he only had like a handful of top tens the rest. I think he only had 2 top tens the entire 2020 season. He only missed 3 races. And one of those top tens was in that Daytona 500 that he crashed because I think he finished like 6th or 7th or something like that across the line. He had one more top 10 the rest of the year. And he only missed a couple races. Yeah, he definitely wasn't the same again. It's a real thing for sure, though. Mom did everything in high school, volleyball, basketball, and more. The all-around athlete. That's probably why you grew up watching and liking sports as much. For sure. Yeah, my dad played pretty much like everything. I wish I would have gotten into golf at a younger age, not only be better at it now, but I was naturally good at it in high school. I was fluctuating between our number 2 and number 3, like best player, and I only played my senior year. I had picked up a golf club and was actually like playing at courses 1 year before that, but I didn't go out for the golf team until my senior year. And my senior year, yeah, I was like the 2nd or 3rd best golfer on the team. If I could have done that when I was like 15, 16, like instead of basketball, I'm not going to say like, oh, I would have went to state or something. Like, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I definitely think I could have been a really good golfer if I had had those like lessons and stuff that I learned my senior year and had that for 4 years or even more than that. But yeah, I didn't even get my first golf clubs until I was like 17. So it was like a rental set from that my grandma had gotten for me. And then when I was you know, actually being serious about going for the golf team that next year, that next Christmas, my dad got me a nicer set because that garage set for $5 was not going to cut it for the golf team, but it was a good starter set for not playing before. It's cheap to get into, but it's expensive if you want to get good. That's the way I kind of explain golf. Junior decent 2016 until he got hurt. 2017. Yeah, I mean, it really is. Oh, I was definitely concussed after I flipped that card. I had flipped it one time before that, but I don't think it really like jarred my brain at all. But when you get thrown out of a go-kart going like 35, 40 miles an hour to a dead stop, like on impact, and it just hooks you. Yeah, there's no way. I don't know what I landed on. Like, it's all a blur to me. The only thing I remember is going wide, hitting the wall at just like a hard, awkward angle, like right front nose first, wedging into the guardrail and just getting thrown back across the track. I am so lucky that nobody else hit me when I was literally like in the air. I don't know how high I was. I don't remember seeing things. Like, I just remember being on the ground and getting up off the ground. That's all I remember. From stuff that has been detailed after the fact, it looked very gnarly for my parents on the outside. They were freaking out. I just remember getting up off the ground and my dad running across like the back straightaway, and it was like a red flag at that point in time. That's all I remember. I was like 16 then. It was in the middle of the summer, so it's not like I had to go to school the next day or something. Like, I was able to rest throughout the week and stuff, but we actually raced. I made the feature still because this was a heat race that happened in, and we had no business. For one, I shouldn't have been racing the rest of the night, but my grandpa asked me, "Is like, do you feel fine?" I'm like, "Yeah, my head hurts a little bit." So my mom had like Tylenol or whatever, like over the counter stuff in her purse she gave to me. My headache never went away. Still kind of had it again the next day. I was definitely concussed. Luckily, I didn't get in another crash later that night. Only one could have imagined. Even red flag. Well, yeah, it was an immediate red flag. It was an immediate red flag because it was me, and it tore somebody else's card up pretty bad too. I don't think he got hooked out of it like I did, but whoever, because it was me getting pinned into the wall, and then there was somebody else to my outside that kind of got pinned in there too. I still don't know how it happened. I was making a pass, and I don't know if I wasn't clear or if I got hooked in the right rear. The angle, because it was like a full speed, no deceleration into the outside wall. It's kind of similar to like some of those crashes you would see like on the infield of the backstretch where it looks like the car is just lock the brakes up and it doesn't slow down at all. Kind of like Jeff Gordon, Vegas in 09. And that kind of like a head-on hit. Ryan Preece at Kansas in 2020 where it just doesn't look like it decelerates. That's pretty much what happened. But only it was a right rear hook into it head-on into the wall. Not F1 rules where they don't even throw a red flag. Yeah. No, it's not like that. I raced like dirt ovals, so there were cautions and stuff regularly. It was dirt ovals I was racing go-karts. It wasn't, because they weren't actually like open wheel in the front. The back wheels were open, but the front was kind of like it was bodied off. It was harder to wheel hop over another car that way. There was more contact with the front. You could still wheel hop over like a rear tire, but you couldn't wheel hop like front. And mind you, again, I'm 6'4", and I have been since I was 15. So I was 6'4". I was already kind of like crammed into that thing anyway. I was definitely probably the tallest person in a kart in any series there. And yeah, that definitely jarred my brain a little bit, without a doubt. That's the only time I can remember seriously, at least in racing, that I definitely was concussed, because I was definitely feeling that the next morning. I was sore the next morning too. I was so sore. I mean, it felt like I was in a car wreck, which I basically was. But yeah, there was definitely a caution. They had to repair the wall. Like, we broke the wall, and all the wall was, it was a guardrail with like plywood in front of it. Like, that's all it was, and we broke through the plywood, and my cart got stuck like in the guardrail because the guardrail was a couple feet up off the ground, and that's why it just like it wedged and stopped and threw me out of it. But the cart, well, so the cart stopped, but the cart wasn't still stuck there. Like, the cart did spit back out into the track because I think it flipped. But I was flying like well before the cart had flipped. I got launched out of it on impact. It looked like one of those, you ever see those like pop-up like beanbag things where it like throws the person out of the chairs like that? Only at speed instead of like stay still. Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. But I somehow limped my way into the feature that night. That was one of my biggest single night accomplishments. And that cart was so beat up. The steering was messed up too, obviously. I think I ended up breaking the steering rack. And I was basically turning right on the straightaway to keep the car straight. Or the cart, to keep the cart straight the rest of the night. And I somehow got into the feature still. I didn't go anywhere in the feature. I started at the back and stayed there, but we did make it. I got the final transfer in the B main. Our equipment was good enough, too, that, like, even with those problems, I was having to fight for. But, yeah, we made the feature. The driver's side, like, panel was duct tape from the top of, like, the roll bar on the side, which basically sitting down went up a little bit above my hip. Up to like my elbow range kind of area. But yeah, that was just duct taped with the bottom of the body so the body wasn't dragging across the ground the whole time. Because we still had to have a body on there. We just taped it. It put a hole in the front of it where it wedged into the guardrail. So we just basically patch it up. Yeah, we ended up needing a new body. My grandpa spent a lot of money that week getting it fixed up before the next race. A lot of broken pieces. I'm sure the engine wasn't good anymore. I don't remember if we used that engine again or not after the fact, but I can imagine it just... I mean, it stayed intact, but just getting thrown around like that, I doubt it worked the same again. We had a couple of engines, though, so I doubt we ever went back to that one. That was probably junk after the fact. I'm sure even with like road course asphalt racing and stuff like that with go-karts, I'm sure they would still throw a red flag for an accident like that. Like, I've never seen anything like that. I've seen a quarter midget flip before. I can remember racing quarter midgets in another quarter midget race. One wheel hopped over another. I've seen a couple of flips. Nose digs into the ground and it flips top over top, just like a normal sprint car or a midget would do, a wingless sprint. But at a slower speed, obviously. But yeah, I've seen that stuff like that were pretty gnarly, but nothing where there was like a wall that just broke on impact like that. Honestly, they probably shouldn't have even raced the rest of the night because they didn't fix the wall perfectly the rest of the night. There was just like an open space in that general area. Like, they're lucky nobody else... I mean... They hardly ever wrecked into a wall anyway. Like, it was there, but nobody ever wanted to hit it, obviously. But we tested its durability that night. I don't know who was caught up in the incident. I didn't know the other person. Yeah, that was wild. Got bit by a horse. Bucked off a horse. 910 got bucked off by a pony. Yeah, That probably doesn't feel great. You're already off the ground several feet on rocks. And not a comfortable landing either. Had to be in rocks, couldn't be in grass. Jimmy in 17 never won after the Pocono crash, never consistently in the top 10 again. Yeah, it's no serious crashes. I mean, that might have been the beginning of the end of my racing days, honestly. There was probably a dip in performance there. I'm glad I was able to at least win a couple times after that still, but I remember I went like a full calendar year without a win, and then I finally won. Like, it was getting to the point where I'm like, I don't even know if I can win again. And then luckily I was able to win. That was a feel-good moment. That's one of my last win is probably one of my more favorable wins just because I'd gone so long without winning before that. Why I like sprint car racing, automatic red flag after flip. Yeah, I mean, it's an oval. You can't just have people go racing back through there the next lap. You got parts and pieces laying everywhere. It's dangerous for everybody. It's already a dangerous enough incident. They got to get like medical on standby. There was no, as far as I know, especially some of the like more local go-kart places, there was definitely no medical on standby. There was if you'd go to like these bigger events that had a lot of money on the line and you get like 60, 70 carts in a class or something like that. Like there would be maybe something there, but big slow up in the middle of 3 and 4, some cars pitting. Talking about my youth stories, and all of a sudden we're past halfway through the race. I don't even know when I started talking about that, but the last 60 to 70 laps are all a blur. I was just like vividly remembering the story and kind of picturing it as I was telling the stories. And I haven't wrecked, so that's good. Tells you how much grip this car has. I'm able to do all that. Because there's definitely tracks that I need full focus for that this isn't one of them. Got a massive lead. I think we were telling stories last time I was here, New Hampshire too. It's an easy racetrack for me. Dale Campbell, thanks for tuning in. Jalen Hurts is out. Head injury. Oof. You've been bit by a horse. Kicked mildly by a calf. Nearly ran over by a heifer. Yeah. Get trampled. That'd be tough. Give mad respect to those the clowns in the bull riding that tried to calm the bulls down. After the fact, dude, those guys are taking a beating. I mean, the riders themselves obviously are too. All parties involved in those situations. Amount of broken bones they go through, getting bucked off of those things, and then getting stepped on, kicked. By an animal that's like more than 10 times their size and weight. Yeah, good luck. Few laps away from our next stop. We're looking at lap 206. Because we did go 103 laps on the first run. Helmet crack. Well, the helmet probably cracked because it was cold. Especially, you know, with the University of Tennessee not playing in that kind of weather. Maybe their helmets weren't, like, stored properly in the trip up there, so they were maybe already super cold when they had put them on for the game. Like, that could have been, and then helmets crack in high school football and stuff like that all the time around here because the weather's cold when you get later in the season. And the plastic cracks. The plastic is the only thing that would have cracked on that dude's helmet last night, not like the actual interior soft pads of the helmet. Like, those all still stayed intact. I'm sure he was still fine. Like, especially at that level of college football, like, they check for concussions and stuff like that nowadays. 10 plus years ago, they didn't do that. I'm sure they checked him, evaluated him, he was fine. They take that kind of stuff so seriously now. Great respect for rodeo athletes, yeah, for sure. They are definitely a different breed, too. Oh, near trouble. Dale Jarrett just got hooked in the right rear by Robbie Gordon going into turn one. No caution still. We've seen a lot of instances like that today, and we obviously saw that in the first New Hampshire race, too, because we had 4 cautions in that race. But we haven't even had a single yellow yet today. Yeah, it was definitely a big hit. I mean, they don't crack easy, but they are easier to crack when it's 20 degrees outside like it was. Below freezing. It's just a hard plastic. They don't crack as easily as they used to. I'm sure the coating around it is a lot stronger with technology nowadays than what it used to be. So you don't see stuff like that too often anymore, but yeah, I'm sure he's fine. He did take a beating, though, in the sense that he took a lot of hits. He was having to run for his life because that was like the only way they could move the ball was him scrambling on the run. He wasn't throwing the ball well. The cold was definitely affecting him. They said he was from California in the pregame, which I didn't know much about him. I knew of him. And I'm like, oh, he's from California and he plays at Tennessee. I knew going into the game, as soon as I heard that pregame, like 10 minutes before kickoff, I'm like, oh, yeah, there's no shot they're winning tonight. There's no chance. Unless they got somebody else who can throw the ball. And sure enough, those first couple series, you could tell he had never been in weather like that in his life, let alone playing football in it. All right, we're just going to pit now. I don't want to risk running out of gas. Got a perfect race going right now. 4 tires, full tank of gas, final pit stop of the day. And I don't plan on pitting the rest of the race. Got a 1-lap lead on the field before this stop. I would imagine that would probably still be the case. What we got going on in the football world right now? I didn't get to see much. Saw a quick glance at a couple of the games. That was about it. But we will wobbly there coming out of the pits. Get up to speed down on that apron when I'm trying to stay low and out of the way. Slide the tires a bit. 95 laps to go here at New Hampshire. This could be the 3rd caution-free race of the season. The way this race is going so far. 1 caution and the 2nd place driver will get the free pass and get back on the lead lap. It's the only sort of competitiveness that we could have. And it is weird, though, because that very initial start, it took me a good 20 laps, maybe more than that, to actually start pulling away from Biffle. And I was wondering if I was even going to do it at all. Finally ended up doing it. We lead all the way to the finish like it's looking like we should. We're going to end up leading 292 laps today, all but the first 8, which, again, those were led by Biffle. But all these laps that I'm going to lead, it's all worth just 10 bonus points. And a win with that would be 190 points. We're not going to get any more for dominating as much as we are. And if Greg Biffle finishes 2nd with those laps led, we're only going to gain 15 points on him today, which means we're just going to have a 20-point lead going into Dover. We're going to have to hit that reset button for tomorrow night. Really try to get it into gear. 7-3 Giants. 6-0 Jets over the Rams. Yeah, I did see that. I still have it up on my phone. Let's see, 7-7 Titans. 7-0? Is that what it is? Cincy and Cleveland? Saw Cleveland. You know what? That's what sucks, too. I had Jameis Winston on my team the last couple weeks, and he had a bad week last week. Like, bad enough to the point I made the biggest biggest big brain move in fantasy football I've made maybe ever. So Jameis Winston scored me 1 point last week. He had like 131 yards, 3 interceptions. He might have had a fumble in there too. He scored me 1 point. And I went into the night game, I think I was ahead by like 8 points, and I can't remember who the guy I'm playing had. But he had like 2 players left. And I'm like, the players he had, I still felt okay that I was going to win, but I didn't want to take the risk. In that league, it's like a best start ball kind of thing. So the bench, like if I had another quarterback on my team, which I didn't at that time, I had no other quarterback, so that 1 point for that QB could have potentially hurt me. So I ended up dropping somebody else that was supposed to play Monday night that was questionable and ended up not playing. So I wasn't going to get any points for there. I was probably banking on them not playing. Dropped them, picked up Kirk Cousins because he was out there on the free agent market, and he was playing a Monday night game last week against the Raiders. And although he had a crappy game, he still scored me 6 points versus the Jameis Winston 1. That gave me 5 extra points. I won by 3. So it won me my league last week. And we have transactions. Excuse me. Oh, man, I'm about to wreck. I was trying to hold that sneeze. I almost wrecked. That was a bad spot to sneeze, right in the middle of the corner. Now I got to get back down to the bottom. A little contact with Kyle Busch. That could have been way worse. I haven't hit the wall the whole race. So, anyway, yeah, I picked up Cousins. I ended up winning by 3 points. If I had not done that, I would have lost. It keeps my hopes of getting a first-round bye alive. But yeah, we have to pay for transactions in that league. It only costed me $1 because it was after the waiver wire, but we bid on the waiver wire. The highest bidder gets the player. And that goes into like the Super Bowl pot, so that's why we have like a playoff champion and we do a redrafting for the playoffs. I'm trying to get that first round bye. I'm staying in it. Panthers are up 13-3. I mean, those West Coast, East Coast games, I guess you kind of see with the Rams game too. It is not easy. I mean, you're basically playing a game at 10 a.m. local time. If you have people that like have lived out on the West Coast, I mean, they are all living out there, obviously, for whatever team they're playing for. So you get used to like your routines during the week and stuff. What times you go in the building and stuff for practice. Daily just routines, even if it's off season, you're still living out there. But yeah, you go and then randomly one weekend you have to start doing everything 3 hours earlier. Those are tough. Not to mention the weather too. I'm sure the weather's crappy in New York versus what it is in LA this time of the year. So you got the weather aspect of it too. See, the Lions are up 13-0. Wade, you're a Lions fan. Who scored for the Lions? Was it St. Brown or Gibbs? I got both of them on my playoff fantasy league. Montgomery was out today. Oh, 20-0 now. Yeah, the three-headed monster is just a two-headed monster this week. And I picked up Garendo, and he was out too, so I ended up having to pick up the next guy for San Francisco that's starting today. They're down to like a 4th-string running back. Just to cover some points there. The team hasn't really been banged up at all this season. So missing one of my key players this week for the playoffs. I need all the points I can get. Yeah, they have so much talent over in Cincy. For sure. Well, offensively, they're perfectly fine. I mean, they're putting up a bunch of points. Their defense sucks. I mean, it's tough. I remember they had a six-game stretch at one point where they scored 30-plus points in that six-game stretch, and they only won one of them. Like, that's bad defense. You're giving up 30 points a game consistently, and your team's, scoring 30-plus, and they're still not winning. Jamison Williams. Cardinals 770. Yeah, they're battling for the division right now in the West. That West is wide open. Was Seattle losing last week? Because I think Seattle and the Rams are at 8 wins, and then 6 for the Niners, 7 for the Cards, I believe. But yeah, that's wide open. And they all pretty much play each other the rest of the season, so it's just a matter of who's going to be the team that's going to win out, who's going to get it. Bro, 6 straight games with 3 touchdowns. That's insane. How about the North? Yeah, I mean, that's all Lions. Minnesota's there, but I don't think they're going to get it. I mean, it's going to come down. Minnesota and Detroit have to play each other, right? It will come down to that game if both teams win out on their other games. So in that sense, it's wide open. I would still probably favor Detroit, though. They've looked better from start to finish. I'd say Minnesota looked like the best team those first, 5-6 weeks. And then once they lost a couple games, even though Detroit lost last week, offensively, they're great. Their defense definitely has to get better. And, well, they're shutting out the Bears this week. So far, so good there. I know it's the Bears, not the Bills. To be fair, the Bills scored 40-plus points 2 weeks in a row. So not going to, act like the Lions are the only reason that the Bills scored that many points. First round bye. Well, that too. I mean, that's all up for grabs. All in that same game, pretty much. Well, Philly might get the #1 seed if Detroit loses to Minnesota and Minnesota takes the division. I think Philly might still get the #1 seed and then neither of them get it, but the #1 seed is not a lock. Bears stink. Yeah, ever since that Hail Mary, have they won a game since then? Or is it they gave up the Hail Mary and then just lost 6-7 games in a row after the fact? That's insane. They were 4-2. They were 4-2. They were undefeated at home, and then they lose on a Hail Mary, and their season just went down the crapper as soon as that happened. It's insane. Packers play Minnesota next week. Yes, they do. Yeah, Green Bay's got to win that game just for the moral sake of giving me hope as a Packers fan that they can make a deep playoff run. The only teams we've lost to this year are literally the only teams with a better record than us in the same conference. Minnesota, Detroit twice, and Philly. Those are the only 4 losses for the Packers, and they're all against teams with 11 or more wins. We're beating everybody else. We're beating other good teams that have above 500 records, like Seattle and a couple other teams earlier in the year Houston. We're beating the playoff teams that are maybe not the championship contenders, but yeah, the championship contenders. We lose. And we lose close games every time. We came back against Minnesota and only lost by 2. Detroit was a last-second field goal for Detroit the last time we played them. They whooped us the first game. Philly was a 1-score game, came down to the last play with a Hail Mary at the end. So, I mean, we were in it till the very end, but just not winning them. It makes me think, honestly, that they can get through the wild card round, depending on who they play. If they play a Tampa, Try to think who else they would potentially play, or whoever out of the West, because we beat the Rams earlier this year too. So I mean, I think we can get out of the wild card round, assuming we should stay in the 5 as the first wild card team. Or well, second technically, because Minnesota would get it. Unless we beat Minnesota, I mean that also makes that game important for that reason. If we can get the 5 seed and have to play like Tampa, I'd much rather play Tampa than any other team, but in one of those two, we're going to play either whoever out of the West or Tampa. Whatever game we end up having in the wild card round. And it would be a road game, which would make it tough. But earlier this year, I think that was on the road in SoFi. So kind of been there, done that. Got to do it again. But yeah, once they get to the conference championship, and they would have to play like a Lions or a Philly team on the road, I don't know that we'd beat them. Probably just like last year. Win the wild card game on the road and probably lose a tight game in the divisional round. I don't know who's playing Monday night next week. Niners and Lions. I mean, Lions. I mean, I mentioned before, especially you being a Lions fan, so we do talk Lions football a lot, but I mean, they were going to be my favorite going into almost every game. I would have picked them over Buffalo last week just because they were at home. That was kind of the deciding factor. I thought going in, those were the 2 best teams. The way they played so far this season. So Buffalo to win that game on the road, that's huge. For my power rankings. Vikings play Seattle today. Is Geno Smith playing or is he out? I have no clue because he didn't return to that game on Monday night or Sunday night last week against the Packers. Bengals just scored again. I just glanced down. We've been talking so much not about this race since pretty much the first pit stop, which was at lap 103, and then we pitted lap 203, and here we are now going to the end of the race. We don't have to pit again. We have a 2-lap lead on the field. We're caution-free. Our most dominant win of the season was Bristol winning by 2 laps. This is going to be even more dominant. Laps led, we led all but 4 laps here earlier this season, but the 4 cautions kept it at least close on the margin of victory side of things. And we had several drivers finishing on the lead lap still. But with no cautions today, it has led for this, which is just utter dominance. We are the Jeff Burton of the early 2000s at New Hampshire. Bro, MVP if they make the playoffs? I don't think they're making the playoffs, so that's the thing. And they probably won't give it to him. Just because the record isn't as good, even though I don't agree that that's the reason why you should give somebody an MVP or not. But I really like what baseball does. Like, even if a guy doesn't make the playoffs, they usually... I've seen MVP winners not make the playoffs in the MLB because they were that good throughout the course of the season. Like, I think Stanton got it the year the Marlins didn't make it. Did he not? Maybe Harper got it or something that year, but... he's up there in consideration when he had 59 home runs, 58. I know he didn't quite get to 60. But they're definitely more lenient with that. It's like if you're breaking records and stuff like that every week, like... even if your team doesn't make the playoffs, like, you're literally doing the best at your job that you can. It's most valuable player. So, who is the most valuable player to their specific team in that particular season amongst the league? So, there's technically speaking, there's 32 MVPs, one for each team, and you basically have to rank who's the best player on each team that season in comparison to the others, and the best one should get the job or get the award. Like that's in my belief what it should be. They're more valuable to their team than any other valuable player to their team throughout that particular season should get the MVP. I don't think it should matter whether that team makes the playoffs or not. That's not the way that the, people who are voting on it necessarily go about it, but like, how is Burrow not in consideration for it? But he's not going to get as many votes for it because they're not in the playoffs. Even though they have, like, the best offense in the NFL. Stant won that year. Okay. That's what I thought. But I wasn't 100% sure. Without him, Bengals would have lost way more games for sure. And just think of the games that they did lose, like they lost by single digits to a lot of these teams. They probably would have lost by way more than single digits to a lot of the teams they did lose to. They definitely would look like just a completely worse team. Yeah, Burrow's the man for sure. Speaking of football, I was playing NCAA 11 earlier this morning for the start of the stream, and it kind of put me in a bad mood right before the stream started. I lost in the worst way possible to Air Force. I was playing as Toledo. I've been trying to like upstart their program. First year I went 6-6. You would think that would make a bowl game. For some reason it didn't allow me to make a bowl game. I'm still kind of confused over that because there were some 5-win teams that were in bowl games. And I don't know, whatever the case was, I didn't make a bowl game, even though I should have. But I've been kind of trying to boost the non-conference scheduling. Well, now that the team's a little bit better, I tried to give myself one gimme game in the season. Coming off the heels, I beat number 8 Michigan on the road, and then number 7 Wisconsin at home. And then I play Air Force as like my gimme game. They were kind of like mediocre. I think they were 51 out of 120 on the FBS schools. I thought I was out of it. I was down by 7. It was 21-14. Offense was stifled the whole second half. I was missing my leading receiver, so that probably didn't help. But yeah, missing my leading receiver for the entire game. He was out. And it was because of like an academic thing that I had to suspend him. They wanted me to suspend him for 2 games. I only suspended him for 1 because I knew how valuable he was in my team. So, obviously, because I ended up losing without him. So that was number 1. Number 2, so I'm down 21-14 pretty much the entire second half. Neither team was scoring. My defense was holding them at least. And I thought I was out of it. I got down to the 5-yard line with about a minute and a half or so left in the game. No, it wasn't even that. It was less than a minute to go. Down to the 5-yard line, about a minute to go in the game. I was trying to save my 3 timeouts in case I didn't score. So I still had 3 timeouts. The dude that I threw it to caught it, ran down to the 5. He gets hit, he fumbles. I lose the ball. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So I thought I just lost at that point. I had the 3 timeouts. I stopped them. I forced them to punt. And I had 12 seconds? No, 20. I had 20 seconds left. No timeouts. Ball at about midfield. So I'm like, I basically just got to take shots at the end zone. First shot at the end zone, I score. I hit a seam route. Guy was gone, wide open. I'm like, oh, that's unbelievable. We're going to go into overtime. Kick it off. 12 seconds left. They had an incomplete pass. They tried to throw a screen. Tackle, loss of 6. So then it's like 3rd and 16. 7 seconds left. And They end up hitting a Hail Mary on me at the end of the game to win. And it wasn't even like a Hail Mary. It was like 70-plus yards in the sense that the guy caught it at about the 20, and then he broke a tackle and ran the rest of the way into the end zone. I still ended up losing anyway. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I thought I lost, and then I was like, okay, I got a second life. We're going to go to overtime, and then I lost on a Hail Mary. It ticked me off. I thought that was the season I was maybe going to go undefeated and try to make the national title game, and now I have one loss, and I'm probably not going to make it. I still have to play Ohio State yet, and then the rest of the conference games, but I actually played one conference game already the way the scheduling was on there, so I was 3-0 going in. Got upset on the road. It's the Air Force Falcons. That was tough. It was a tough scene of the Toledo Rockets. OSU is going to be a loss. We'll see. I beat them last season 14-13. And that was a wild game, too. I scored a touchdown with like 7 seconds left to win. It's so hard to move the ball against a team that's so much better than you on those games. That's why I have to throw the gimme game in there to try to pad their stats a little bit. Because if I just stacked them all against me in the non-conference schedule, and I have to do that if I'm going to make any push for a national title game because there's no playoffs like there is now, so I have to be the top 2 season's end. I basically have to go undefeated. Which gets my conference I was able to do last season, but I ended up losing the game. I think I lost to Nebraska, who was in the top 5 ranked when I played them. It was a close game, but ended up losing. Yeah, now I lost one right off the rip again this season. I didn't think last season I was going to be anywhere close to where I was. I ended up losing my bowl game to UConn, too. I didn't even make a BCS bowl. I beat a ranked Boise State that season, but they got the BCS bowl over me, even though they had 2 losses and I had 1 and I beat them. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Sure, they had more talent than I did on my team, but the game's a little weird with that. It's kind of ticked me off that that's happened 2 seasons in a row, where I got snubbed from a bowl game despite having 6 wins the one season, and then the next season I probably should have been the BCS bowl for the group of 5. But they ended up getting it even though I beat them earlier in the season. I purposely played them with that thinking of, okay, this is probably going to be the team that's going to get the group of 5, but if I beat them, it should put me ahead of them. No, I'm still ranked behind them. I think I was ranked 7 at the end of the year, and they were 5 with 2 losses. I didn't like that one bit. Strength of schedule, maybe? I guess. I don't really know who else they'd be playing outside of me, though, for the strength of schedule. Well, I mean, they probably have a better... There's probably another ranked team in the Mountain West that they're playing that I'm not. Like, all the other teams in the MAC are unranked every time I play them. It's not my fault I'm in that conference. Other than the fact I picked the team, but I'm doing the best I can with what I got. I'm stomping teams out. I'll usually have like 1 or 2 close games in the MAC out of like nowhere where I'm putting up a lot of points against a team, but for some reason my defense decides not to play. Like, I'll have that once or twice a season still, but yeah, it's a grind for sure. Won't stop until I win a championship. I'm on year 7 right now. I always lose that one game. It's like 1 or 2. It's fun, though. The highs are highs and the lows are low. 28.7 something that last lap. Fastest lap of the race. It might have been the first lap I ran a 28.7 today because I haven't noticed that before, but definitely the quickest lap of the race. The acronym, it took me a minute to figure out that that was the team up north. Yeah, I was texting somebody during the game last night. Well, my grandpa, for one, is an Ohio State fan, so I was texting him, but there was some guy I work with that I'm good golfing buddies with, and texting him during the game, too, and he was like, this is how we should have played against you guys. I'm like, well, why didn't you? And he's like, because Ryan Day's a bitch. I'm like, fair enough. I'm like, I hope they beat Tennessee by 40 plus so he can keep his job, and they were pretty darn close to winning by that much. There was a slight moment at the end of the second quarter where Tennessee had a little bit of life, and you kind of wondered, like, okay, can they actually make this a game? And then Ohio State just shut them right back down the second half again. They had those 10 unanswered points late in the second quarter. .36 laps to go this time by. Still looking to see if this is going to be our third caution-free race this season. Utter domination. We've talked almost nothing about this race since about lap 100. And that first pit stop of the day. A 2-lap lead on the field. It's going to take 2 cautions just for the second place car to get the free pass twice to get back on the lead lap. So this race is all but locked up at this point. It's weird to me, though, that we had 4 cautions here earlier this season and none in race 2. Like, at least Michigan with the first race going caution-free. The second race only had 1 yellow. Like, that kind of made sense. Indy, we only raced at once, so we really didn't know what to expect for the caution side of things there at that track specifically. Even though a track similar to it of Pocono, we ended up having some yellows in both of those races. Slightly different. Definitely more calm. It was still a good race, though. Like, it was highly competitive throughout in the Brickyard 400, despite it going caution-free. Same for Michigan. Even though it was more stretched out, it was competitive because of the fuel mileage game. And the caution-free race there, at least. This race is not competitive whatsoever. The cautions in the first race here made it more competitive, even though we clearly had the fastest car in both races. But I expected to put up some dominant performance today. That's exactly what we did. And as a result of which, we're going to have the chase lead. We're going to have the points lead with 9 races to go. Picking up where we left off. It's technically not going to be 2 wins in a row. With the simulations of the last couple races, I'd like to think I would have won Richmond, but Fontana was going to be tough. This race, though, yeah, we've got something good going on. And Dave Blaney's having himself a day. 32 to go now. Should win by 3 laps. Yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure how often I'm lapping them by. Honestly, there's going to be quite a few cars that are probably short on fuel that are going to have to pit a 3rd time. There's probably going to be some drivers that can make it, but it's another one of those weird race lengths where if it were to go caution-free, we'd probably have quite a few stops. 28.719 that last lap, fastest of the race for Dave Blaney yet again. With 31 laps to go, he's still running some ridiculously quick times. So we continue to just get better and better, lap over lap. This is the most, like, day off race I think I've ever had, too. Like, I've hardly focused at all on this race. 28.683 that last lap, fastest of the day. That's going to be tough to beat. 28.6. 28.68. Hertz is done for the day. Well, I see on my my phone that they are ahead. And they have Saquon Barkley still that they can give the ball. So that could help too. There's a couple cars out of the race that I see on pit road, but honestly, I don't think I've even noticed anybody that's blowing a motor. That roughly 100 lap stretch where I wasn't really focusing much, I could have easily passed somebody that was blowing up that I just wasn't looking at. Dover's a much trickier track, so I'll definitely have to stay more focused there, but at the expense of having the fastest car, we probably will have that for tomorrow's race. We'll definitely be one of the ones to beat yet again for the Monster Mile as we try to sweep the Monster Mile this season. Have to be on our A game. I expect to win when we come here. I expect to win when we go to Dover, Martinsville, Phoenix. The other 6, it's gonna be an all-out brawl trying to get those other 6. But got to take care of business, lead the most laps, and win the race in these 4, at the very least. Make it more difficult on somebody else to try to beat us.
Clean as possible. Do the same.
24 laps to go this time by. Bengals nailed a 59-yard field goal. Evan McPherson's a good kicker. He's clutch, too. I remember that year they went to the Super Bowl. It seemed like whenever it was a late game situation, he had to make a kick. He made it every time. It didn't matter how far it was. Wasn't he a rookie that season or something ridiculous, too? Yeah, he's a good kicker. Play easier difficulty. Choosing a bad driver in 08. No, I don't plan on doing that. Nope, we will make it tough. I don't know what driver I'll race as in 08. It might be a bad driver. It might not be. You guys will get to vote on that as we get closer to that time. We will start the polls.
Been pretty good about giving us some room lately. The 17 card is outside.
Catching Kenseth through 3 and 4.
17 is closing the gap.
Tony Stewart just a couple more cars up ahead. I would imagine he is up towards the front of the leaderboard as well as the 17 of Kenseth we're currently trying to pass. So we will get by him.
Whatever you need, you're clear.
And we will have 20 laps to go this time by.
Keep blocking. 41. High up high.
20 to go.
Nice, and giving you some room to race. Still alongside you. Way to go. Still there. Borderline. Working with him has helped us so far. Okay, we're clear.
I did pick up the Bengals defense on my on the fantasy league I'm trying to get the #1 buy for. they were out there earlier in the week. Picked them up on the waiver wire for $2, and playing the Cleveland Browns because I saw Winston wasn't playing this weekend, so. Pitching a shutout right now. We get bonus points in that league for any amount of points they hold another opponent under 20. So if they pitch a shutout, that'd be 20 points on top of whatever else they get for like turnovers, scores potentially. So it is. I've seen some defenses score 20 plus points on there before, and it can be a huge difference on whether you win or not. It's a low scoring league. It's hard to score in that league. It's not PPR, it's standard. So defenses are valuable. I usually just play the matchup game every week as the best I can. I was doing that for like the first 5 or 6 weeks this year, and then I think other people were catching on to what I was doing, and they started doing the same thing. So it's kind of hard to get the defense that I want for the bidding purposes of it anymore. Now that we're late in the season, there's only select teams that are fighting for anything right now, so if they already have something, they're not going to give them up. I've got Tampa the rest of the season. I'm hanging on to them because the last 2 weeks of the year, they play Carolina and I think New Orleans or Atlanta or something like that. It might be New Orleans. So I want to keep them. And I got Cincy for this week. So we've had cars pitting the last several laps. If everybody has to pit again, we're going to end up winning this race by like 4 laps. At least 3. And Jimmy Johnson just up ahead. Not sure exactly what position he's in. Kyle Busch coming to pit road there. So we look to the inside of Johnson. I believe we're 3 wide right now entering turn 1. Yeah, 3 wide. Here's Sterling Marlin coming out of the pits. Slight bit of a tight squeeze as we've got the 14 car clear. He got the 48 clear on the back straightaway as well. Yaley moving way up the track. Denny Hamlin's had quite a bit of nose damage for a while. I'm surprised he hasn't shedded any debris. I was waiting for him to do that back in the first 100 laps. And he hasn't repaired the damage this entire time. I jam the brakes in front of him real quick. Maybe it'll so it'll fly off. We break our caution curse. That'd be kind of hilarious if I did that. I have a multiple lap lead as long as he doesn't blow my fuel cell, which I have like 0 damage on this car. I haven't hit the wall once. Had slight contact with lap cars here and there, but it's few and far between. So I think we've put ourselves 3 laps ahead of the field after passing Jimmy Johnson. Unless I had already put myself 3 laps ahead because they had all pitted. Not entirely sure there. We still have cars that are cycling on and off of pit road. I think we'll end up winning this thing by 4 laps, honestly, if they all have to pit. And if they don't, it's definitely going to shake up the running order quite a bit in the sense that we are going to see maybe some other drivers get good finishes, so maybe non-chasers getting top 10s perhaps. And maybe chase drivers who need to have a good run today to put themselves in a position because they aren't going to be as competitive race in and race out. Props to both Robert Yates Racing Fords to make it in. Little contact. That was quite a bit. That's as heavy of contact as I've had today. It's Mark Martin there. I knew Bobby Labonte was going to pit because he was slowing down the middle of the corner, and I just ran right into Mark trying to get out of Labonte's way. Sorry, Mark. I wasn't going to be able to get on the brakes enough. I still ended up nicking the 43, but not as hard as I could have. Kurt Busch cutting us off after he comes out of the pits. Crossover move here for Dave Blaney to get back to the inside of him. Still a 3-lap lead. Labonte coming off of pit road. He's going to cycle behind Busch. A couple other cars might get by him as he gets to speed down the back straightaway as well. Nine to go. 8 laps left. Still got cars on and off of pit road. We're probably going to continuously have that to the very end of this race. The guys just trying to stretch their fuel window as far as they can without a caution. We should be at least 3 laps to the good, so we shouldn't have to pit again. If we did get a caution with like 2 to go, that puts us past the scheduled distance. I think I'm going to pit just to make sure. I mean, we have a couple lap lead, so it won't hurt us. It would hurt us if we ran out of gas on the last lap and didn't make it back around to the checker. That would hurt us. Oh, contact. The one car. He was trying to get to the high side after exiting the pit lane. 6 to go. Still a 3-lap lead. Still got cars on pit lane. My quarterback this week, after I had to get rid of Jameis Winston and Kirk Cousins, because Cousins got benched too, I was going to have 0 quarterbacks on my team from 2 last week, and ended up picking up Anthony Richardson was out there. I don't know what he's done today, but the Colts are up 24-7, so that leads me to believe he's having an all right game. He was literally the only guy out there that was worth taking. There was literally nobody else. And I knew it was going to be hit or miss because he's had some really bad weeks and some really good weeks. And I'm like, well, they're playing the Titans this week, so he has a good week this week, and then we'll go from there. Might be a week-by-week thing the rest of the season. Three laps to go, this time by. Dave Blaney looking for the W. It's going to be win number 14 on the season. And 1 for 1 in the chase. 2 races we've actually raced in a row in which we'd win, because we won yesterday at Bristol in the night race. Also in dominating fashion. Our last 2 wins are going to be by more than 2 laps. Well, 2 laps exactly yesterday. 3 today. Yeah, 3-lap victory. White flag this time by. This will be our 3rd caution-free cup race of the season as well. Starting to get more of those as we get later on. And it is a caution-free race today. White flag in the air. 1 lap to go for Dave Blaney. The cleanest race of the season. And if Bristol wasn't the most dominant race of the year, this one will be. Margin of victory, yes. Laps led percentage, maybe not. He led 4 more laps in the first New Hampshire race here, but once he got it, just like the last one, did not give it away, and no cautions to make it interesting in any way, shape, or form throughout this one versus the 4 cautions we had at New Hampshire over a week ago. Checkered flag waves, and Blaney's a winner. Let's go. And we'll see where all those chasers finished here in a couple of seconds. But first, the victory celebration and burnouts on the front stretch. Let's go. Dale Jr. actually finished in 2nd today. No laps led. Greg Biffle 3rd. Only led 8 laps. Those were the only 8 laps I did not lead. He started on the pole. We started 28. Jeff Gordon finishes 4th. Jimmy Johnson in 5th. Matt Kenseth 6th. Tony Stewart 7th. Ryan Newman 8th. Kevin Harvick 9th. Mark Truex Jr. rounds out the top 10. All chase drivers finished inside the top 10 except for Matt Kenseth, who was 6th. He just missed the chase. And Truex in 10th. So only 2 chasers did not get top 10s. So where did those guys finish? It would be 14th for Elliott Sadler and Dale Jarrett 18th. Were the only two Chase drivers to not finish in the top 10 were the Robert Yates Ford. So good that they got in. They're kind of the underdog teams of the 10, I'd say. Jarrett with that win at Richmond to kind of get in at the last second. He was holding on to a late spot there. He came in as the 7th seed as a result of the win. Another quick race with a going caution-free. 2 hours, 26 minutes, and 19 seconds. 3 straight cup races, less than 2.5 hours for us. 1 lead change, no cautions. Margin of victory, 3 laps, as mentioned already. 130.15 mile per hour average race speed. Our only DNFs today, Scott Riggs, Tony Raines, and Jeff Green. S. Conway also DNF'd, I guess, with about 40 to go. And everybody else finished. And some drivers finishing 10 laps down on speed, Menard and Stremme, but 4 DNFs in today's race. We'll take a look at those point standings here. Coming up next. Our 14th win, and I don't think it will be our last. We still have 3 more races that are very favorable for us, including tomorrow night at Dover. That stream will begin at 5 p.m. Eastern. I'm starting it 1 hour early for the midweek streams because my Packers play on Monday night, excuse me. They play on Monday night tomorrow, so we'll be starting that at 5 p.m. Eastern. I am going somewhere for the game, so I definitely got to make sure I wrap the stream up in plenty of time for it. 400 lapper for that one, 400 miles. I always wondered why New Hampshire as a 1 mile track was an extra 100 or 100 miles less, I should say, than Dover, which is also a 1 mile track. I've always wondered that over the years. So only a 25-point lead over Greg Biffle, with him finishing 3rd and getting 5 bonus points. Us, the max points day, 10 bonus points on the race win. And obviously, Dale Jr. finishing 2nd is up to 3rd now. He's 45 points out, tied for 3rd. In fact, with Jeff Gordon, they each have 1 win apiece. Harvick, Stewart, Johnson, Newman, Sadler, Jarrett. All within 1 race worth of points of each other still, as they all finished today's race. Dale Jarrett is now last, minus 111. But yeah, it's going to be tight till we get through Talladega. I think we get through Talladega, which is race 4 out of 10 of the chase, and we'll start to see who the real championship contenders are. Mathematically, they all still have a shot. Equipment-wise, I'd say the top 8 still have a pretty good shot. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good rest of your Sunday afternoon, and I will see you guys tomorrow, again, 5 p.m. Eastern. Dover Monster Mile Cup Race, NASCAR 07 Chase Race number 2.